Hey guys, welcome back to Fandom Sage. I have been wanting to make a video around this topic for a while, or this concept for a while, I should say, which is the pitching of an idea, plan of action to make this project a reality within the MCU. And this project I'm talking about today is Midnight Suns. There has been a lot of buzz around the possibility of a Midnight Suns movie from Marvel, which I personally think would be fantastic to see. But how would they go about setting this up, and how much of the story from the comics would they adapt, and which characters would you like to see featured in this supernatural team-up? Here are my thoughts. The next supernatural project to be released, as far as we know, will be Doctor Strange 3. So we could begin to see the seeds of Midnight Suns being planted there. There may also be the possibility that some may be planted within the Daredevil Reborn series. A stretch, but it's possible, given Punisher's involvement. Also, some seeds may have already been planted within the Disney Plus series Agatha All Along, but we'll get to that later. And while I would love to get this project sooner than later, I think it would be a mistake to rush it or expect it to be fully realized by the end of this current saga we're already in with the MCU. And by fully realized, I mean the full, complete, premiere Midnight Suns roster. Stay with me. I believe that this supernatural arc that will culminate with the Midnight Suns began in WandaVision with the introduction of the Darkhold. It carried over into Multiverse of Madness and also bled into Agatha All Along. And I know Marvel still desperately wants to introduce Blade into the MCU. Many fans have begun giving up hope that we will get this Mahershala Ali version of Blade, clamoring instead for Wesley Snipes. Personally, I would be happy with either, but the fact remains that Blade is an essential piece of this puzzle to get to the Midnight Suns, at least if you expect for them to follow the source material even in the slightest sense. And there's another essential character, an essential piece that many people overlook, most people, in fact, and the chances that this character makes it into the MCU on the big screen are slim, and this character is Victoria Montesi. Now, Victoria was a part of a group of supernatural hunters called the Darkhold Redeemers, or the Redeemers for short. This character to me is so important to the foundational lore of the Midnight Suns that it feels criminal that she's rarely mentioned. So basically her story is she's half Italian, half American. She grew up in Rome. Her mother died some time ago. Her father is a priest and a protector of curated supernatural items, including the Darkhold, or one of them. Those in the Montesi bloodline are resistant to the corrupting effects of the Darkhold, so they have a sacred duty to watch over this black magic book forever and ever, I guess. But Victoria and her father do not have a good relationship because not only is Victoria a woman, but she's also a lesbian. She's actually Marvel's first openly lesbian female character and a lead, but she does not have a good relationship with her dad. He's also concerned about not having more of their bloodline to expand to watch over these dark forces. Despite all that, Victoria, or Vicky, found happiness and became a doctor and lived with her karate instructor girlfriend named Nash, and things were looking okay for her. But unfortunately, she would be targeted by dark forces that blew up her apartment trying to kill her, instead left her girlfriend Nash paralyzed and comatose. Obviously super distraught, Victoria wanted answers, and her father basically explains to her that these people after her and causing all this chaos are people that worship the Darkhold and, dark forces, and they have released into the world pages from this dark spell book. Victoria had heard all of this before and knew about what her father did, but didn't really believe it. But her vision started. She started seeing things when people would find these pages and enact these magic rituals. She could sense it. She didn't tell her dad this, but she could feel the energies. She could see through their eyes. She could see visions of things. She could also see something very evil that was watching her too. She was kind of freaking out. So the Vatican, who her dad worked for, they got her a bodyguard that was assigned from Interpol. His name was Sam Buchanan. Now, Sam was a career agent, pretty much seen everything, but he does not believe in supernatural stuff. He don't have time for that. And he was very skeptical about a lot of stuff. For a long time, when he was going through these adventures, it took him a while to really just admit that, demonic forces and magic and things like that were an actual thing. He just doesn't like it. Sam Buchanan is like her shadow. He watches over her. Victoria also ends up getting help from an occult specialist, an expert that was an ex-archaeologist and professor, Dr. Louise Hastings. Now, Dr. Louise Hastings is very knowledgeable. She's like Nick Fury and Giles from Buffy rolled up together, and she just knows her stuff. She knows all about the creatures, she knows about the artifacts, she knows about the Darkhold, she knows about the spells. She doesn't have any natural mystical abilities, even though her family bloodline is known to produce those with natural mystical abilities. She herself did not inherit this gift, but she studied the lore, she's studied many things, and she's traveled all around the world, and she knows what she's talking about. So she begins to help Victoria understand what's happening to her, as well as hunt down these pages of the Darkhold, because Victoria can sense them and can track them, basically, and the people that use them and are corrupted by them. When Victoria and Dr. Hastings are attacked by these cultists, these Darkholders, Sam reveals himself and fights them off and shoots them all full of holes, and basically says he's going to, follow them and make sure they don't get into any more trouble. So they end up forming a little group that we know from the comics to be the Darkhold Redeemers, or the Redeemers for short. During their earlier adventures, the Redeemers, they would go around all over the place, all over the world, and encounter people that were using these Darkhold pages. And these pages had specific spells and different rituals on them that would do specific things, like resurrect people or stop time or whatever, mess with people's memory. A regular person could use this magic just from the page alone, and it wasn't quite as strong as if it were in the book or you were a natural mystic or a sorcerer, but it would still work if you did the ritual or recited the incantation or whatnot. So it was pretty dangerous because their souls would get corrupted. They would pretty much turn evil. All kinds of shenanigans would happen. So they would always go around and, track down these people and try to save them. A lot of times they were not able to save the person, but they were able to help the other people around them. During these adventures, they would team up with various characters like the Punisher, Doctor Strange, Scarlet Witch, and a character known as Modred the Mystic. Now, Modred the Mystic is another semi-important character that I think would be a great addition to the MCU because he is so complicated and layered and has a lot of ties to many other characters over a long period of time. Modred is an ancient and powerful sorcerer that lived in the age of Camelot and King Arthur. He was recognized by Merlin to have great potential. He was even considered to be a potential sorcerer supreme in his day. He was supposed to apprentice under Merlin, but fell under the influence of the Darkhold and was corrupted, but he tried his best to fight. There was a malevolent being called the Other that was in his mind trying to convince him to do evil deeds and all this kind of stuff. And we know now that the Other is Chthon, who is the writer of the Darkhold. He is the Dark Elder God that is pretty much pure chaos and evil. And he wants desperately to get a foothold in our world so he can come into our plane of existence. So the Darkhold is one of those ways that he does this by corrupting people that access it and having them form these rituals and try to open gateways and all kinds of stuff. So Modred was a big catch for him. And Modred knew that he was slowly being corrupted and was unable to fight it. So he gave himself over to his former teacher, Gervais, who was also a wizard, and he put him into a deep, deep stasis to stop the corruption from taking him over. So centuries later, archaeologists found Modred. He wakes up in the modern age, doesn't know what the heck is going on, still fighting this dark influence of Chthon, but he is determined to cleanse his soul and fight these urges that he has to do crazy, evil things, which sometimes he will have a moment where he he goes into a Gargamel kind of persona and you're like, whoa, and you gotta watch him for a little bit, but then he'll snap out of it. He ends up teaming up with the Redeemers and helps them and considers himself the leader of the group right away, which is kind of funny. They don't fully trust him right away, but he does save their lives several times and he's an ally. But he is under the influence of Chthon and the Darkhold because he can access spells and magic from the Darkhold that he already has knowledge of, but he doesn't access the Darkhold fully. Because when he did read the Darkhold back in the day, it boosted his powers. He was already a pretty good sorcerer, but it made him stronger. But fighting off the influence of Chthon and him being in stasis, Chthon lost his grip on him, basically. But he's still able to access some of that dark power, which is why the corruption continues to find him and spread to him. And the rest of the team keeps giving him the side eye. Anyway. Also around this time, Dr. Louise Hastings has a run-in with her estranged daughter she has not seen in like 20 years. She is going through it and she ends up getting killed, and Dr. Hastings has to take in her grandson, William, who doesn't know anything about what is going on with his grandmother. He goes by the name Jinx. Initially, he is very confused and doesn't know what is going on, but he quickly learns the landscape. And in fact, Modred recognizes that he has mystic potential and begins to train him in secret. Sam finds out later and he is not happy about it and tries to stop Jinx from training with Modred. Now, this cult, the enemies that they fight that are raising all this hell, are regular human people that are fanatics and that serve the demon Lilith, who is also known as the mother of all demons. And Lilith has a consort or a lover to make her demonic children, and her consort is Zaranthos, who is a spirit of vengeance. Their children are called the Lilin. Now, Zaranthos, the spirit of vengeance, should ring a bell for you, as many know that this is the spirit responsible for the creation of Ghost Rider. So, keep a pin in that. We'll come back to that. Lilith had the goal of trying to resurrect herself because she was basically dead and on another plane of existence, but her occult followers were using the corruption of the Darkhold to bring her back. Lilith has a specific reason for targeting Victoria, but that reason wouldn't be revealed till later. Now, at the same time we have all of that going on with the Redeemers, we have the Night Stalkers. The Night Stalkers is another team consisting of Blade, Frank Drake, and Hannibal King. Now, these three prolific vampire hunters and monster hunters, they all have been fighting monsters for a long time. They have all trained with Van Helsing, and they didn't really know each other. Due to a series of events, they found themselves allied in order to take down vampires. And it became a reoccurring thing, so they kind of just stuck together. Frank Drake is an actual descendant of Dracula himself. Hannibal King is an atypical vampire that has not ever fed on human blood before. So he has been alive for like 300 years. He can go out in the sun for a little bit, not direct blazing sun, but he's able to withstand the sun, but he does get tired in the daytime, so he usually is sleeping. And then you have Eric Brooks, aka Blade, the Daywalker himself. With the help of Doctor Strange, these three were trying to quell a vampire uprising that was happening. Dr. Strange secretly had another agenda, which included wiping out all vampires with the Montesi formula, the spell that was translated from the Darkhold by a member of the Montesi family that was used to destroy almost every vampire, but as the spell weakens, those vampires end up being resurrected. Doctor Strange knows that the spell is reaching its conclusion and is trying to get these vampire hunters ready in case he is not able to stop this from happening. So they end up forming this group called the Night Stalkers. Then you have Johnny Blaze and Danny Ketch having visions of this demonic birth and this mother of demons, Lilith, and are shook. And they end up setting out to find people to help them take down Lilith. They enlist the help of Morbius, the living vampire, and they all end up kind of colliding, these three groups, the Redeemers, the Night Stalkers, and the Spirits of Vengeance. This would seem like it was just coincidental, but in fact, Doctor Strange manipulated these events. He wanted to get them prepared to fight a greater evil and learn to work as a team, because many of these people did not know how to handle working with anybody else effectively. So these were the original members of the Midnight Suns, and they were also prophesized that they would stand against the forces of darkness, and to lose even one would severely weaken our defenses against the forces of darkness. And they were initially known as the Nine. It's like Doctor Strange assembled the Midnight Suns out of separate collectible packs and then made one super deck, for those of you who collected Marvel cards. These characters are very interesting and kind of build upon each other and create this tension and this anticipation leading up to the formation of the Midnight Suns, because they all have their own kind of team dynamics and then they join together into one team. During their various team-ups, because they would kind of come together and break apart again, there were several times members were corrupted, including Victoria herself when she was tempted to use dark magic to revive and restore her lover Nash, but she was able to undo the damage and resist the corruption of the Darkhold. Also, Blade was corrupted by the Darkhold when he made the mistake of accessing a spell, the Demigorge spell, which he believed would wipe out all of the monsters, all of the vampires, and he was basically tricked into doing this, and he became corrupted and became a evil version of himself called Switchblade, and he killed Victoria, he killed Modred, but in the end, Louise Hastings sacrificed part of her soul to reverse the Demigorge spell that Blade initially used, and this reversed the effects, and it turned him back into Blade, and it also revived everybody that he killed, which was pretty convenient. Louise Hastings fell into a depressive state and she was noticeably different. Even though she had resisted the full corruption, she paid a price for using that spell, and she was down bad until months later in a mission she was killed. Morbius convinces Jinx that Modred killed his grandmother, when in fact it was Morbius himself who had been corrupted by the Darkhold that killed Louise. So Jinx goes after Modred and surprisingly was kind of giving him the business. When the truth came out, Modred still helped them and he still, helped them defeat Lilith, but after that went his own way. Victoria would find out she's not actually a Montesi at all. Her father lied, he was sterile, but because his bloodline was so valuable to the fight against the forces of darkness, being that they're resistant to the Darkhold's effects, he resorted to using the Darkhold to ensure he had an heir. But Chthon, of course, being evil, tricked him and ended up impregnating his wife with his own essence. So Victoria Montesi is Chthon's daughter. Victoria has been showing signs of morning sickness. She is pregnant and in fact is going to give birth to Chthon himself. And when she finds this out, she tries to unalive herself, but Sam Buchanan stops her. They go to Doctor Strange for help. Doctor Strange puts her in a stasis to slow this outcome from happening, and he does eventually come up with a way to stop it. Re-enter Modred the Mystic, who is searching for Victoria Montesi and has tracked her to Doctor Strange's secondary Sanctum Sanctorum, and he is saying that Victoria is pregnant with his master. Modred has been fully corrupted at this point and tries to break into the Sanctum Sanctorum, and there's a confrontation between Doctor Strange and Modred where Doctor Strange does defeat him, strip him of his magic, and pretty much left him in a childlike state. But I'll stop there, I won't go any further. But I just wanted to illustrate how the setup is already primed to introduce these characters and to do it in an interesting way and to do it over several projects if they wanted to, which they should. Maybe do a Redeemers series where they're hunting down these pages of the Darkhold and introduce these characters, and then maybe a special presentation Ghost Rider with both Ghost Riders. Then boom, we can get Blade, or hell, call it Night Stalkers or Blade and the Night Stalkers or whatever. Then we can get that crossover. So this is what the MCU should be about, which is, building out the universe and doing it with these characters that they have these connections. And Doctor Strange is connected to all these characters. So including Victoria Montesi, I believe would be really smart. And she's such an important character. She's such a legacy character and foundational to the Midnight Suns. I think it's shameful that she's been forgotten. I think she's a really, really cool character with an interesting story. I would love to see that. So I have a few ideas for actors that I could see playing these roles that haven't been cast yet. For Victoria Montesi, I like Simona Tabasco. If you've seen White Lotus Season 2, she was a part of the cast of that show and played a girl who was kind of shifty. I think she was trying to solicit herself at this hotel and make money or get a rich man or something like that. She had a really nervous kind of energy about her, but she was also very brave and straightforward, and I enjoyed her performance. She stuck with me. She is Italian, and she's the right age that I would believe she could be a doctor. She could do, action and do stunts and stuff like that, and she's a beautiful lady. For Sam Buchanan, I wanted somebody that is a great dramatic actor that could carry that kind of disgruntled, incredulous skepticism well, and also pine after Victoria Montesi, because Sam is very attracted to Victoria Montesi, and when he finds out that she is not heterosexual, this causes some friction in their group. It gets a little ugly, actually, at one point, but they work through it. I don't think he ever really accepts that she is gay, so it was kind of like a weird situation. But Casey Affleck is a really strong actor to me. I've always enjoyed his performances. They're quite understated, but really stick with me. And I think that he's super talented, and I think he would do great in this role. For Dr. Louise Hastings, Sophie Okonedo, who is well known. You have probably seen her everywhere, and she's been in so many things. She's amazing. Most recently, I think she has been in Wheel of Time as the high seat or the grand seat. I forgot what they call it. She was also in the show Slow Horses with Gary Oldman as head of MI6. And she's got it. I can believe that she's knowledgeable and has done this work and been an archaeologist and been an occult specialist. And I just love her voice. She's amazing. For Modred the Mystic, it took me a while to actually think about this. And I would have picked somebody like Jude Law, but he's already been in the MCU. Ewan McGregor has this great feature where he is quite endearing because Modred is a anti-villain for all intents and purposes. He's not a bad person at the beginning of his story, and he's really not a bad person at all. He has been corrupted and he fights actively against it, which is actually really impressive that he's able to do that. Also, he is dangerous, at the same time, because when he does get fully taken over, it's not good. And he's very powerful. He pretty much can do everything Doctor Strange can do, maybe not quite as powerful, but he is a master of the mystic arts. Plus, he's supercharged when Chthon or the Darkhold get a hold of him. Ewan McGregor is endearing and you feel for him, but he's also kind of creepy. I don't know if anybody else ever has felt that way, but I've always kind of felt like Ewan McGregor, he makes me feel like he might be doing something behind the scenes. Like, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, moving on. For the role of Jinx, I definitely wanted somebody that was younger, that kind of contrasted with the rest of the group. This gentleman, his name is Josh Tadeko, and if you haven't seen him before, you might want to check out a show called Supercell on Netflix, and it's about black superheroes in London. He did a great job on that show. He was really, really strong. He probably was one of the strongest parts of the show, and I think he would do well in a project like this. I would like to see more of him, so that's why I picked him. Now, as far as the Night Stalkers go, Blade, that project has been in turmoil apparently for a while, but I can't see it not happening. I can't see that project not going anywhere because it's important to so many other parts of the Midnight Suns if they're going to actually do the Midnight Suns. But Blade is such an important character, I can't see them just not doing it. So it'll eventually happen. It's just going to take longer. So they've lost some people that were attached to the film, like Aaron Pierre, who never officially announced who his character was he was going to play. But I believe, and many people do too, that he was going to be playing Hannibal King. I would have been interested. I think he would have done a great job. But another alternative to him, I think that would be great, is Dave Patel. Dave Patel has shown that he can do the action and the intensity with Monkey Man. I love Dave Patel. I think he's a treasure, and I would love to see him do more things. And in fact, he has been rumored to have had talks with Marvel in the past, but they never settled on anything or a role for him. So, hey, I think he would be a great Hannibal King. As far as Frank Drake goes, I got this vision of Jeremy Allen White playing this character a while ago, like years ago. It has just stuck with me. He does have this Alucard kind of quality about him with the hair, but he's definitely rougher around the edges than, Alucard is really posh and everything. But he's a descendant of Dracula, and he hates vampires with a passion, and he goes super hard in the paint to kill them. He has a big gun that is a mystic gun that kills supernatural beings. And he is trained with Van Helsing for years and years and years. He is highly skilled at what he does. And he's just like a really intense character. Jeremy Allen White is one of those type of actors that's super intense. And I would never have even thought to put him in a superhero type of film. But if it was to be any type of film, it would need to be something dark. So yeah, Jeremy Allen White from The Bear. If you haven't watched The Bear, you're really missing out. Great show. As far as the Ghost Riders, Johnny Blaze and Danny Ketch, I'm of two minds. So I like both of these actors that I have latched onto. The first being Norman Reedus. I have been a fan of Norman Reedus, Johnny Blaze for years, and I'm still holding out hope. When Ryan Gosling's name started being floated around, I wasn't against it. I didn't hate it. It took me a while to kind of picture it, but I also would honestly see him as Danny Ketch. And they are quite different in their demeanor and mannerisms too, which is even better to show that contrast between how they operate as Ghost Riders. As far as Chthon, if he does make an appearance, I think that he should, at least even in just voice. Timothy Olyphant is a treasure as well. I think he is so underrated. What a great actor, and he's always been good. He's kind of got this easy kind of way to get underneath your defenses and kind of draw you in, but he definitely has an edge of danger to him. So I think that he would be a wonderful dark god, Chthon, and a kind of a seducer, just somebody that is really going to chew the scenery when he gets the chance to get in there and be evil as hell. I want to see that. So that's where my head is as far as the Midnight Suns. Tell me what you think and what would you like to see in a Midnight Suns project. Thanks for sticking around, and if you like this video, please give me that thumbs up and share, and don't forget to subscribe for more comic and fandom discussions. See you next time.